Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Be Like Christ. We're going to talk about Matthew chapter 27 in, hopefully, 5 minutes. There's a lot to talk about here. But if you want the free handout that you're about to see up on the screen, check out the link in the description down below to our website, and you can get this handout and a bunch of other stuff for free to help you to understand the Bible and to know God better. When did the events of chapter 27 take place? This is at the tail end of Jesus' ministry, between 26 and 31 AD. As far as our main characters in this chapter, we've got a few new ones too. Jesus, he's not new, he's the Messiah who's come to save the world. Then Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate was the 5th Roman governor of Judea, and he permitted the Jews to kill Jesus. We have the chief priests and the elders. These were some Jewish officials who opposed Jesus' work and his ministry. Judas Iscariot, who is the apostle who betrayed Jesus in the last chapter, in chapter 26. And then we talk about a guy named Joseph of Arimathea. This is the only time, I believe, that he's mentioned in the Bible. You might not want to cite me on that. But he was a rich man who went to Pilate, and he asked Pilate if he could bury the body of Jesus. And then Barabbas. Barabbas was a criminal who was in jail, and Pilate tried to use him to kind of get himself out of a bind and get release Jesus. It didn't really work out. We'll talk about that in a second. The geography of chapter 27 is really easy. All of this occurred in and around the city of Jerusalem. Chapter 27 starts off on a really sad note. Judas Iscariot kills himself after betraying Jesus. Verses 1 through 10. Jesus has been in prison all night, and when the morning comes, Jesus was taken to the Roman governor Pilate. Judas felt really bad about what he had done in betraying Jesus, and he tried to give the money that he was paid back to the priests, but they refused to take it because they considered it blood money. And Judas felt so bad about what he had done that he went out and he hung himself. Verse 11 through 26 is a pretty popular story. See a lot of images and artwork portraying this. This is Jesus on trial before Pontius Pilate. So Pilate, the Roman governor, he's questioning Jesus, but Jesus, quote, gave him no answer for his questions. Pilate didn't have any reason to condemn Jesus, and he told the Jews as much. And he gave the Jews a choice. He said, I will release one prisoner to you. You can either have Jesus or you can have Barabbas. Barabbas was a pretty terrible guy. He was in jail for insurrection and for murder. Pilate thought that he could kind of get himself out of the sticky situation that he was in by offering Jesus up, because certainly they would take Jesus over Barabbas, but the people refused, and the chief priest got them to ask for the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. The Jews insisted that Jesus be crucified, and eventually Pilate, feeling like he was stuck in a corner, he relented and gave them permission to kill Jesus. Verse 27 through 31, Jesus is beaten and mocked by the Roman soldiers. So the Roman soldiers took Jesus, they stripped him of all of his clothes, they put a scarlet robe on him and a crown of thorns. And they beat him, and they spit on him, and they mocked the idea of him being a king. And then we finally come to the crucifixion, verses 32 through 44. Jesus was taken to Golgotha, which means the place of a skull, and he was crucified there on a cross. Simon, a man of Cyrene, which is in North Africa, he was recruited to help Jesus carry his cross to the place of crucifixion. So the Romans drove nails through Jesus' hands and through his feet and pinned him to this tree, and they put this sign up above his head that all crucifixion victims received, and it was to describe the crimes of the crucified individual. And the sign said that this man was it said, quote, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." The chief priests, the scribes, the elders, they passed by Jesus as he was hanging on the cross, and they mocked him. And there were 2 thieves that were crucified with Jesus. One was on his right hand and one was on his left hand, which is why you often see 3 crosses when the crucifixion is portrayed instead of just one. And then Jesus dies in verses 45 through 56. So the earth was dark, supernaturally dark, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And around 3 p.m., Jesus yielded up his spirit, and he died. Matthew tells us that the curtain that was in the temple, it tore in half from the top to the bottom, and there were earthquakes. And then at the very end of this chapter, Jesus is buried. Verse 57 through 66. A rich man named Joseph of Arimathea, he took Jesus' body down from the cross after he got permission from Pilate, and he buried it in his own tomb. Pilate gave the Jews permission to put a guard by the tomb so nothing happened to Jesus' body. And the tomb was then sealed in order to prevent any kind of rumors that, Jesus had resurrected from the dead. We'll see how that works out in chapter 28. In the big picture, chapter 27 and chapter 28 are really the climactic point of the entire Bible story. This is what it all centers around. The Old Testament looks forward to this. We who live post-crucifixion and post-resurrection, we look back at this as our hope for eternity. This was the saddest day in human history. Jesus, who had created all things and loved all of his creation, was rejected by his creation and determined too detestable to live among them. But as I just mentioned, luckily the greatest day and the happiest day in history is coming right around the corner 3 days from now. And for our application, I think it's worthwhile to spend some time meditating on the fact that our sins are just as responsible for crucifying Jesus as the sins of the chief priests and the elders and the Sadducees and the Pharisees. All sin is a rejection of God. It's the statement that we know how to govern our lives better than God does, and we're going to go our own way instead of his. And Jesus had to die to save us all from the pride of our sins and to fix our relationship with God the Father.